Hello everyone, you're welcome to my channel. You're welcome to Decenstitch. If you're a new subscriber or returning subscriber, you're welcome. Please kindly like, share, comment, subscribe. Please subscribe and click the notification bell. Thank you. We have gone ahead to cut our flare. This is a 360-degree flare, and I've slit one of the folds to be able to put my zip. We'll be working with invisible zip, and when I was calculating it, I used 2 inches for my zip allowance because I need just 1 inch on this side and 1 inch on this side to fix my invisible. But if you are doing the overlapping method of zip, you can go ahead and use 4 inches as your zip allowance when cutting the flare. You have 2 inches on this side and 2 inches on this side to fix your zip. So I've gone ahead to pin this down so it doesn't move. Then I'll open this, then I'll measure 1 inch and draw a straight line. Then I'm going to measure the length I need for the zip. I'll be using about 7 inches. You can use 8 inches too. I'll be using 7 inches. So the remaining, I'm going to sew it down. I'll sew the remaining all the way from 7 inches. I'll sew the remaining all the way down. After sewing it down, you press it open with your iron. I'm going to open my zip. I'll place it this way. The teeth of the zip will be on this edge where I have the 1 inch. So I'm going to bring it down by ½ inch because of the band, so that the band can pass through. Except you don't mind. If you want this plastic into the band, then you shift it up this way. So by the time you pick your ½ inch for the band, the plastic goes into the band. I'll go ahead and pin it down. Make sure the teeth is on your 1 inch. At the end of your joining, you place the teeth there also. And pin it down. You do the same for the second side. When you get to the end of the joining, you put this beside the first one. Make sure there is no gap between the two of them, and then you confirm from the remaining ear that they are equal. If you have one longer than one, you adjust it. Make sure you check here. So I will adjust them to be equal down here. I'll make sure they are equal. What is left is equal. Then I'll make sure the teeth, they are both touching each other. then I'll pin it. So you can, if you are using this type of foot, if you're using this type of foot and not the invisible foot, you will need to tack this down with your needle and thread, or you use the machine to tack it down before you start sewing. As you can see, I'm not removing the pin yet because I don't want this to shift. I need the two teeth to touch each other. So I'll try and sew as much as possible before I remove the pin so that it doesn't shift. Then what you're sewing, make sure you end your sewing immediately where you have the joining. Don't go beyond it. So you end it immediately where you have the joining. You do the same for this side. You will not remove the pin yet. You try and go as close as possible before you remove the pin, because if that place is not close, it won't be nice. Your work will look like commercial. The edge of the zip, I can bring it out from under here, zip it up and confirm that everything is fine. I confirm that everything is fine, then I zip it back down, then bring it out from here. I push it out from the end here. That's the way I make my own, and it's easy for me. So let's say you have sewn and you need to correct a mistake. You will always take it back inside, go inside from here and pull the edge. So that is why I said when you're sewing down, don't go beyond this joining. If you are sewing it down and you go beyond that joining, it will be very hard to pass this through that space. So when you are sewing, don't go beyond this joining, the two fabrics where you have the joining, don't go beyond it when you are sewing. So now I've secured my zip. Like I said, you can use your needle and thread to tack it down just to hold it for you. So now I'm going to sew the zip. So as I'm sewing, I'm going to use my hand to open this and sew as close as possible. There's a fold when you open it this way. There's a fold here just after the teeth. So you are sewing as close as possible to that fold, but never sew into the fold. If you sew into this fold, you will not be able to zip it. So sew as much as possible close to these teeth, but never sew into the teeth. I'm going to change my thread so you can see what I'm doing. When you're making your real outfit, use the same color of thread, but because I want you to see what I'm doing, so I'm going to change the color. As you can see, I've used my hand to open it. So I'll start sewing that way. Like I said, don't enter into the fold, but sew close to it. takes a lot of practice. Then go gently. You have to move gently. If not, you're going to be moving around, or you will mistakenly enter into the fold. You sew and stop, sew and stop. So this one, no running, cannot. Then make sure to end where you have the fabric at the end there. End exactly there, don't go beyond. If not, you will not be able to pass the edge of your zip. Now you can see it better with the thread. So I'm very, very close. If this folds now, it covers the thread back, but I'm very close to the edge of the teeth. And with that, when you zip, you have less showing. It's called an invisible zip. It's not supposed to be showing. So when you don't go close, the fabric part of the zip will be showing. Okay, I think it's showing. Then you make sure it's open. If you don't open it, wow. Then gently, gently, gently. You make sure you get to the end. Now I'm going to bring out the edge. I'll bring out the edge from here, then I'll zip it up. When I zip it past where I have the ending, I'll flip it to the other side. Then pick it and zip it all the way up. Like I said, if there's a mistake, you zip it down, pass it through the little hole and correct your mistake and zip it back up. So you can see that the end of my zip is very neat. I don't have opening, I don't have space, very flat and neat. Then one is not longer than the other. All those mistakes, if you make that mistake, just lose it and repeat. It should be like this. It should be neat like this. Then if you feel it's not close enough, you can go ahead and sew closer. The remaining space up here will be used for the band. By the time we fix the band, it will take off this opening. The remaining zip, in this case, because it's very close, I will have to cut it off. But before I cut my zip, I always run some stitches over it to secure it in case it wants to open. So I'll go close to the end there and run some stitches over it. Just to hold it. Then I'll trim it off. Next step is to fold the hem of the skirt. So we'll be using, either you use 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch because the hem allowance is 1 inch, but I like to sew a little lower than 1/2 inch. When it comes to flare, I like to sew a little less than 1/2 inch because it's easier for me. Then another method is to overlock the edge weaving. You overlock the edge, then you fold once and you sew it down. But because the edge is still raw, we're going to have to fold twice. So I'll fold a little less than 1/2 inch so it can be easy for me to fold. I like to fold this size, then I pin it down a bit. Then my secret to sewing the flare, when you pin here down, you jump and come here, you fold it, you pin it down, then you come back to where you jumped and try to fold it. It will be very easy that way. It will now be easy. So tip 1 to sew a flare, the hem of a flare, is to sew a little less than 1/2 inch. If you're going to do double folding, you sew a little less than 1/2 inch because the bigger it is, the harder it is to fold. Then tip 2, jump when you are pinning it and go back to where you jumped and try to pin it down. It's going to be very, very easy that way. Then tip 3, never ever fold and sew. If you are not a professional, if you're a beginner, never ever put the fabric, start sewing and be folding as you sew, be folding as you sew. Never ever. If you are not able to fold the whole thing round, fold a bit, you stop, sew to that point, then continue folding as you sew. Fold as you sew. If your pin will not be enough to pin it around, maybe it's very big, fold a section. So when you're getting close to the last pin, don't get close to the last pin, but when you're getting close to it, fold a little more and sew. Those are the 3 tips. If you follow those 3 tips, you will never ever have problem folding a flare again, and your flare will be very neat. We're almost through. Just to put the band. I'm going to fold a section and sew it. Let me change this thread. I need to change this thread back to the black thread. As I sew, I will remove the pins. Tip number 4. Never sew fast. don't rush your sewing. You have to go gently. You have to go gently when you're making a flare. So never ever sew very fast, just sew gently. The next tip, when your thread cut or you make a mistake, lose it. Lose it. Your work has to be neat and perfect. Lose it. Go back to the end. Lock your stitch. Do a very neat lock stitch. Then continue sewing. Never ever sew double lines, and never make your work rough. If you make a mistake, lose it, or if your thread cuts while you're sewing, go back to where you ended, do a very neat lock stitch, and continue sewing. Mistake is bound to happen. Like I said, don't get to the last pin because it will not be easy for you. So when you are approaching the last pin, you stop. Then you continue folding. You fold a bit and sew again and continue till you finish your flare. So you jump a bit, you fold that, then you fold the remaining. That is the best way to do it. You will notice there will be a difference in your sewing when it comes to flare. Even people will admire you that your flare is neat. They will say, come and teach me. We are done with the hem of the flare. The last thing is to fix the band. The first thing I'm going to do is to cut the lining. I'm going to reduce the length by ½ inch at the hem. I can also use 0.25. Either I use 0.25 or use ½ inch. If you are a beginner, make sure to measure the ½ inch with your chalk before you start cutting. So that makes the length shorter. The next thing is to open it up. On the right side of the fabric, I'll place my lining, the right side of my lining. Then I'll shift it down. Now it is shorter, so I'll shift it down to the hem. Then I'm going to sew 0.5 inch at the hem. After sewing 0.5 at the hem, I'll trim it down a little bit. I'm going to raise it up here. Then at the hem, I will shift the fabric down a little bit. Just a little. You can see the little that is here. So I'll shift the lining up. Then the fabric will come down a little bit this way. Then the next thing to do is to sew where I have the zip allowance. So I'm going to sew just 0.25 inch. That is 1/4 of an inch. So very small, just sew it on the edge. Then on this side too, I'll sew it on the edge. Before sewing, remember, I'm going to put the lining up a bit so that the fabric can come out here a bit. So that makes the lining well concealed inside the flare. So it won't be coming out, the lining won't be showing at the hem at all. The next thing is to turn it out. I'll make sure I raise the lining up that way so that part of the fabric, as you can see, part of the fabric is on the edge all the way to the end there. You have part of the fabric. So the next thing is to iron it and make sure it stays well and it's okay up here. After this, we bring the zip allowance area together. Then we fix our zip. You measure the length of your zip and you close the remaining part of the skirt. So we fix the zip. After the zip, the last thing is to fix the band up here. Then our flare skirts will be ready. This is the inside and the outside will look like this. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please kindly like, share, comment, subscribe if you're new here, and click the notification bell. Thank you.